Good evening and welcome back to our weekly question and answer series for Anash.org. Question: my children like to eat warm eggs at the Shabbos day Suda. They usually put raw eggs into the cholent while it's cooking in the crock pot. Last week they remembered only after Lichtbenchen. According to the timing, my husband realized it was after Shkia. What happens to the cholent and to the eggs? Will we be able to eat it or not? So we have to divide this, the cholent and the egg. The cholent, which was regularly cooked before Shabbos, it is not a problem to eat in Shabbos, because although you put in something, even if you put in something in Shabbos, which is cooked on Shabbos, and that will be also to eat, it is only a problem with the thing which you cooked. But the cholent has no problem, and the blias becomes bottled with the kosher cholent. So, for instance, a person puts in something in the cholent, Shabbos, b'maizet, which is also to eat that food which you put in the cholent because you cooked it on Shabbos. Now that's for sure. The item which you put in the cholent on Shabbos is also to eat, but the cholent itself does not get osir, and the blias which comes out from the item which you cooked gets bottled in the cholent. So the cholent you could eat. There's a dik of the Alter Rebbe, she eat ches, I don't want to go into it in length, that basically it becomes bottled with the cholent. So the cholent is not a problem. Now the problem, let's think about now regarding the egg. They put in the egg in the cholent, and it's after the shkia. That means it's bein hashmoshes. Now, the Mishnah Brira brings down a Simmerai Samach Aleph Sif Kut Nevuv from the Prima Gudam, that even if a person does an Isser and cooks something only b'bein hashmoshes, it is also for him to have nehana and to eat it on Shabbos. And I feel if he did it b'shoigik. So, regarding your question, if they put in the eggs in bein hashmoshes, according to the Prima Gudam, it is also to eat, because you made a malacha bein hashmoshes, which is sufuk laila. That means maybe it's already night and it is cooked on Shabbos. So therefore, according to the Prima Gudam, it's also to eat even b'shoigik. But the Bir Halucha over there in Simmerai Samach Aleph, Divrei Maslav Ahmad Likin, he paskens that by the evet, if a person put in something in bein hashmoshes, you could be Michael and eat it by the evet. And he connects it to the Mugnavruam and Simmer Shin Chuf Gimel Sivkut Id Aleph. If a person toivelt nu keilam, he is permitted to use it on Shabbos. So therefore, the Mishnah Brira paskens la halacha that by the evet you could use it and eat it on Shabbos, since it was only done by bein hashmoshes. And this is also which it's paskened in Shalos Yeshiva Zayis Ranan Chaylik Bay Siman Hai. Over there, the story was they used to bring the cholent. They used to bring to the bakery, the baker. He had a big oven, and everybody brought their cholent to the baker. And Shabbos in the morning, everybody used to take their cholent from the baker. Now, a person brought his cholent afternoon, and the person which is in charge of putting in the cholent into the oven got busy, and he put in some cholent. He put in bein hashmoshes into the oven. Now the question over there was, if you're mechiyev to go around and tell for the people that their cholent was put in the oven by bein hashmoshes, and they shouldn't eat it. And he paskens that no, it's permitted to eat, because it says the whole knas, not to eat the thing which was cooked on Shabbos, is only midrabanan. And since Ben Moshes is a sufek laila, so now it comes out it's a sufek drabanan. So it's mistaber and he paskins that you could be Michael like all other sufek drabanan. So to answer your question, but the evet, the eggs itself could also be eaten on Shabbos. The cholent, there's no question it could be eaten on Shabbos. But even the eggs, you could be lenient and eat it on Shabbos. Question. Brushing hair on Shabbos, I know, is an issue. So I always use a Shabbos brush, which is very soft, and it doesn't tear out any hair, because if it tears out hair, it's a problem of goizes. Someone mentioned that the same applies to human hair, sheitlach, and not to synthetic sheitlach. Is there any truth to it? The answer is, if you talk about goizes, no. There isn't goizes by any sheitel. Not on a synthetic and not on a human hair sheitel. Because goizes is only hair which comes out from the skin, from the skull. Even though that it's not alive, let's say from an animal, you take off hair from an animal which is dead, that's goizes, because you took off hair from a skin which was created over there, was bashafan over there. So that's goizes. So in a sheitel, synthetic or human, it makes no difference. There is no such thing as goizes, since it didn't grow there, it was made there. So there's no difference between synthetic hair sheitel or human hair sheitel. But there is a problem of koiraya. So and that's also by both sheitel. So there's no difference between human hair and synthetic sheitel. If it's goizes, there isn't, and karaya there is by both. So therefore, if you have a brush which is made from soft hair and it doesn't tear out hair from the sheitel, both will be permitted. And also you have to have a brush which is special for Shabbos, miyichle Shabbos, as it's stated in the Shulchan Aruch. So to answer your question, there is no difference between human hair sheitel or synthetic sheitel regarding Shabbos. Both of them, there isn't a problem of goizes, and both of them, if you use a very stiff brush, you will have a problem of koireya. Just to note that K'tzois HaShulchan, Simon Kif Mem Gimel Sif Kut Nevov, writes that any sheitel that it is not prepared to use, you cannot use it the way it is, and only if you're going to brush it, it will be ruah to wear it, you have another problem of tikmuna. So, going back to the question, there isn't goizes by any sheitel. And there is a problem of kareya by both sheitlach. And the same will be also tikmuna if it's a sheitel which you cannot use only if you're going to brush it. So, there's a problem of tikmuna. But to say that by human hair there's a isser of goizes, there aren't such a thing. Question. My kid like to do magic tricks. Are there any issue with that? In today's Rambam, the Rambam writes there's a problem of oiches anayim. What does that mean? Also, what about a magic show? Is there any issue for a yid to do such a show or watch such a show? This is a question which is considered in the Poskim in Lent, and I wrote a whole article in Kovetz Ad Yisrael, issue number 36, page 141 in Lent. And the Nekidas Advurim is that if a person tells for the people, they should know, has nothing to do with some kind of energy or spiritual koiches which a person has. It is only a trick which a person does by moving his hands very fast, and people will not recognize what he does, but there's no any koiches, alimas, or kishuf, then there isn't a problem. Especially if one of the shows, he shows how it does it and explains how he does it that people should recognize, so there for sure there isn't a problem of doing a magic show. And this is also what the Kloz Magaruf, Zechroin Levrucha, in his Shivas, Diver Yatzif, Heilige Yeridaya, Siman Zayin, writes that the Isser is only when he does something through koiches, spiritual koiches, higher energy, then he has a problem of koiches anayim. And this is what the Rambam says, and the Chinuch says, that there's a problem of koiches anayim because people will start thinking that there is some kind of energy in koiches which doesn't come from the Rebbeinu Shloim. So therefore, it's a issue to do. But if a person tells for the people, or he shows them, that has nothing to do with spiritual koiches, and it is only, he uses his hands very fast, and therefore it looks like he does some magic, but it's not any magic, it isn't any problem. And this is also in Shivas Van Huges, Heilig Alav Sema Tufni in High writes, and in Charles Shivas B'Tzayla Chochma, Heilig Dala, Tzimi Yid Gimel, also writes like that. And he says, the Rambam, which the Rambam says, the Oiches es Anayim, he means hypnosis. Now when you do hypnosis, so you do some kind of energy that you put in that person in some kind of matzav, that he thinks that you do something supernatural, and that it is a problem. So he paskens to hypnotize a person, that is a problem. But when you're doing something, a magic show, which you don't hypnotize him at all, you're only using your hands on a way which is very fast, and people do not recognize what you do. But if you would have done it slowly, people will see that nothing major over here, then there's no problem of doing it. So getting back to your question, there isn't a problem to doing magic, making a magic show, but you have to tell them it is not any superhuman energy, koiches, and it's only because he pushes and he uses his hands very fast, so people think it's an illusion that he does something. And especially if he shows at least one show how he does it, according to most of the poskim, there isn't any problem, and this is how we pasken, that there isn't any problem. Question: are you allowed to borrow money from a home pushka? Lamashli, if you need $1 for a delivery tip, could you borrow it from the pushka? Now, in Shechanarach Yeridaya Sima Reishni in Tes, Sif Aleph, Hilchas Tzedukah, Shechanarach says, if a person says, this $1 is for tzedukah, or if a person says, I'm going to give $1 for tzedukah, and he took it already, and he divided it, he put it away for tzedukah, as long as it didn't get to the hands of the gabi tzedukah, he could still change it. That means he could borrow it for himself, for someone else, and give another $1 instead. When it came already to the hand of the gabai, you cannot borrow it. And not for yourself, not for someone else. But if there is a hano for the poor people, if the gabai does business with it, or he keeps it, or he lends it for other people, so if there's a gain for the aniyan, then there is no problem that the gabai should lend it out this money. Now, according to your question, when coming back to your question, in the pushka, somebody gave for the pushka money if you could take for a tip or something else. Now, in the previous shir, we mentioned if a person has a pishka in his home, if he puts in money over there, it's already as if it came to the hand of the gabbai or the moised or not. And we mentioned there's the machlokes of the shach, which holds that once you put it in the pishka which belongs for someone else, for a moised, it is as if the moised got it. Then the Nesiv Mishpat disagrees with the shach and holds no. Even if it's the pishka belongs for a moised, since the pishka is in your house, it is still considered yours, and it's not considered as it came to the hand of the gabbai. So when it comes to your question, first of all, according to the Nesivas, there's no problem that you should borrow money from the pushka because it's not as if it came already liyad hagabai. According to the shach, it will be a problem. But in this case, we could go a step further, and even the shach will be agreed that you could borrow from their money. But you have to make sure to make a cheshbon and put in a note that you borrowed $1 or $2 or as much as you want, because you shouldn't come to jipping the pishka. That means if you take out any money, you have to write a note into the pishka that you took from here, $1 bill or $5 or whatever it should be. And it's kedai that you should make a tanai that whenever you put money in the pishka, you could still borrow it if you want. And if you make such a tanai, it will help. And this is what the Pesach Shiva writes over there on the Shulchan Aruch, which says that if it came to the hand of the gabbai, you cannot borrow it. The Pesach Shiva, Sifkut Dalad, writes, Bezmanayin, in our time, we are lenient, since it is as if the Bezdin makes it nigh, that as long as it didn't come to the moist, actual to the moisted, we could still borrow it. So therefore, even according to the shach, if we make it nigh that we could still borrow the money from the pishka, it is okay. This is the Pesach Shiva says. The Pesach Shiva says that it is as if the Bezdin made such a nigh for all Kal Yisrael. But the poskim write, it's kedai that the person himself should say once that whatever he puts in the pishka, he puts it, and he is masna that he wants to be able to borrow it. Now the poskim say there is another thing which you should do, that whenever you borrow some money, when you return the money, you pay it back, add on something for the pishka, for tzedakah. So therefore, it is as if, like the Shulchan Aruch says, that if there is a hanoah for the poor people, that when it stays by the gabbai tzedakah, if he lends it out because he could get interest, etc., so he could lend it out. So if a person borrows $1 and he puts back, let's say, $1.25 or $1.05, so there is a gain for the moiset, for the oni. There is a gain for the oni when you borrow the money. So therefore, according to Machaber, there's no problem. So to answer your question, if a person wants to borrow money from the pishka, he could borrow it, and he should put in a note that I lent from the pishka $1 or $2, and when he gives it back, it is kedai to add on a drop, a little bit, so then there's a hanoah for the moiset when you lend money from the pishka, and that will be l'chaladayis mutter. Question: at what age, development stage, is it appropriate to start saying a bracha with a child with Shem Malchis? Is there a specific age, or whenever he could say a bracha? Now the Tashbetz, the Chivas Tashbetz Chayli Gimel Simas Hamachai writes that the age for be mechanech a child for bruchas is when he knows what we are saying, to whom we are saying, that he knows that we are saying a bracha and we are thanking the Rebbeinu Shloilem. That's the age when you should start saying for a child brachas. And the Mishnah Berurah and Simon Reish Samach Tesif Kuden Aleph writes, what is it in the age? At the age, that's the age when he is 6 years old. So this is the Chivas Atashbet. And this is also with the Tas, writes in Simon Tuf Reish Pai Hai, Sif Kuden Bais, in Shal Chivas Bais Yehuda, or Rechaim Simachov Bais, that when a child knows already for whom we are making a bracha, then you could start making a bracha. But we see other poskim which write that the time could be much earlier. And we see in the Sod V'Shorish U'Avoida, Shar Zayin, Peirig Yid, he writes, V'rui L'Udam, it is proper for a person to be machanach his children, that when he starts davening, when he starts speaking, when he can start talking already, he should start saying brachas. And this is also what we see from Shal Shivas Haluchas Ketanas, Chaylik Aleph, Simaraish Nivuf. He has over there a shaila, a person has a sufuk on a brucha, and he doesn't know what to do. So he says, you should take a child which is not a very smart and not a tippish, a child which starts to speak already, and you should say with him a bracha word by word, and by this you are machanach the child to saying a bracha, and you are also yotzi the bracha. This is what his solution he gives when you have a sufik bruchas. So we see at least that you could be machanach a child to say a bracha from when he could start speaking. It's interesting to note that also in Shal Shivas Divrei Chaim, Chaylik Bais Siman Tes, over there he has a sufik. Somebody asked a question from the Tzanzeruf if he could teach his children to make a bracha because maybe they are not clean, because a child cannot clean himself after going out in the toilet, so maybe we cannot say a bracha with them. And the Tzanzeruf says you could make a bracha because they are not mechiev in the chinuch of gifnuki, but you could be a mechanach a child to say umain. So we see also from the Tzanzeruf that it is even a child which is very small, he only started speaking, you could teach him to say a bracha, and that's it also with Shem Malchus. Agav, it's kedai to look in Mesgeres HaShulchan of Kitzah Shechanorach Siman Kif Samachai Sif Yid. He has a very nice hagu over there, which he answers the questions which the Lechem Aponim As Aleph asks on the Tzanzeruf, and he answers all the questions, and he finishes V'chayna minig b'chol tvitzis Yisrael. That's the minig in all in ganz klal Yisrael, all over, to be machanach children at least from 3 years old to say b'chol duvish v'gdisha. So we see that you could say and be machanach a child even when he's less than 6 years old, when he starts speaking, or at least when he's 3 to say a brucha. There is also a letter from the Rebbe which I remember hearing or seeing, but I didn't find it, that the Rebbe writes that somebody asked the Rebbe if he could start sending Naira Shabbos Licht with a child when she's under 3, and the Rebbe says yes, if she's clean already, she knows how to she doesn't have a pamper anymore, she's clean, you could start sending the Shabbos candles and make a bracha. So also we see that the Rebbe writes that you could be machanach a child from when you could start to daven and say words and talking with saying brachas. Okay, thank you for joining us, and please join us again next week and send in your questions to inbox@Anash.org. Good night and have a wonderful week.